Alright, hello everybody, WindDrake here, doing a limited review of Set 3, Hex, Swords of Fate, um, Armies of Myth. I'm going to do artifacts and resources, and this review is going to be based on card evaluation from the limited perspective, limited being draft and sealed. Alright, card number 1, Blamsack. Blamsack is a 5-cost artifact, and and that's it, just an artifact. Move that down a little bit. Blamsack um, says at the end of your turn, deal 3 damage to each opposing champion. That's okay. Not quite great for 5 mana, but that's okay if you do it every turn. That's definitely putting a clock on your opponent. Sounds great. Here's the downside. When you are dealt damage, sacrifice this. There are lots of ways to deal damage in Hex, and that kind of ease of being able to deal with this card for your opponent makes this card go way down in value for me. You can burn face, there could be a hero ability that can do some damage, there can just a creature attacking in, something that crush or double strike. I mean, anyway, this is just lots of reasons why this card doesn't stay on the board, and its effect isn't powerful enough if it just survives for 1 turn to make it justified for the 5 shard cost. So this card is a poo poo. I give it a D plus, just because it's gonna win some games because of its effect. But other than that, it's pretty bad. Bright Moon Totem, 3 resource artifact, and it has the prophecy. Cost 2 Coyote you control. Pretty big setup cost. You need 2 Coyote. And the next troop in your deck gets +1/+1. Not an exciting card. Doesn't have a huge effect. You need 2 Coyote to set it up. Not great. All in all, this card gets a D minus. It's gonna be okay if you can just spam the board with Coyotes and you don't mind exhausting 2 of them. It's kind of okay on your opponent's turn and board stalls, but other than that, I mean, outside of having some prophecy matters type cards, I'd say this card isn't great. So I give it a D plus, just because it's gonna have a home in some decks, but the vast majority it's just pretty poopy. Um, Charge Colossus, an 8/8 for 8. When the centers play, gain 8 charges. So 8/8 for 8 is pretty unplayable because most games don't make it to 8 resources. An 8/8 is going to win you the game, but eventually, if it can't be dealt with. But the thing is, it doesn't have crush or any way to evade or push through damage, so it can be blocked by a 1/1 and basically get negated for a turn. That's not exciting. 8 charges is cute. Maybe the charge powers help get you there, but at turn 8, I mean, chances are the game's already been decided. There's no charge powers going to get you back into the game, really. So it is kind of an underwhelming card. If you can ramp it out, it's a good top end card. If you play on 6, it's broken, but that's all conditional stuff that may or may not happen. So in other words, not that exciting. So I give it a D. Eternal Sage, this card's amazing. Instead of going in all the iterations of how this card's amazing, it's amazing because it's a 5/5 for 5, great and limited. Um, its abilities, if you play a Sapphire or Ruby or Wild, all make this card a bomb. If you have the Blood or Diamond, it's a little more underwhelming, but um, all in all, it's a 5/5/5 that can be played in any deck. It's going to give you some upside. It's either a bomb or an awesome card, depending on what charge you're in. Pick this first. Love it. Yay. Exiled Bard, 1/1 for 1. That's a boo right there. This card basically has unique tribal, so that's kind of pretty much counts it out for limited right then and there. But when another unique card enters under your control, add an epic counter to this. Each epic counter gives a +1/+1 for each other unique thing. When you have an epic counter, I probably butchered that. This card's never going to be played in limited because you're never going to have enough uniques to make it work. It's not good on its own. Horrible card. Rip it up. Don't play it. Railroad Acorn, for this card and every other allegiance type land, they're amazing if you're in that allegiance. Dual lands, tri lands, whatever, they're all great and broken and amazing. If you're not, you don't want this card, you're probably going to pick it anyway because it's going to be worth something. But outside of that, it's either an A or an depending on whether or not you satisfy the allegiance, but keep track of how much it's worth because it could be worth a lot. Fifth Book of Catharsis. This card is going to get a lot of people excited, and it's horrible, and I'll tell you why. At the start of each opposing champion's turn, if that champion has 20 or more cards in their graveyard, this deals 1 damage to them. That's a big setup cost, even in mill, for an underwhelming effect of 1 damage. Mill doesn't really need a secondary win con for that. I don't even know if mill is possible in this format, probably. But anyway, that's poo poo. And then at one, you can one shot for 3. It's already cost 3, so it's 6 you're investing now to do this one thing, which is take 3 of the best cards out of your opponent's deck and bury them. That's great if the 3 of his best cards were the first 3 cards and the next 3 cards in his deck. Otherwise, this card's pretty underwhelming. Who cares? You gain some information, not worth the mana investment. Poo poo, F, take it out. Some people are going to try to make this card good, and they're going to lose some games because it doesn't do enough. Gilded Leer, exhaust the troop you control, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by target attacking troop this turn for an exhausting of this and 2 resources. It's 3 to cast out. You get the fog, 1 thing, once a turn. No big deal. Not that great. Doesn't even help you get back in the game. It just kind of prevents some damage a little bit for a few turns. At total of 5 resource investment plus any subsequent uses of this card for 2. Pretty bummer. Pretty underwhelming. Not worth the card. Boo. F. Howling Plains, again, another A or F, depending on whether or not you do Colloidal Allegiance. Keep track of how much it's worth, maybe worth a bunch. We'll see. Mecha Filcape, great flavor. It's a parody of Filcape. What has a better limited effect, in my opinion, of reverting target troop instead of all troops. That's great. 4/6 for 6, which is okay. The fact that its colors can be played in a lot of decks is great. The fact that you can choose what you revert is great. I'd say this card is a solid C+. You're going to find its way in a lot of decks. Decent on the top end. Hurrah. Monument of the Martyr. Troops you control have +1/+1. I think this is a PvE card, so I'm going to skip it. As long as for this amazing card that I originally thought was a PvP card. And I almost shit my pants, but yeah, it's PvE card too. Okay, here's this PvP card. Acropolis Tablet. Yeah, sure. If you're the 1% or 0.5% of decks out there that can actually play 5 shards, go ahead. Drawing a card for just exhausting a card is always worth it. The setup cost is through the roof. So if you can live the dream, enjoy it. If not, this card isn't even worth considering. Relic of Nolzam, Sockable Major, 1/1 for 3, horrible right there. Sockable Major. Every Sockable Major you can imagine is pretty good, but not that great on a 1/1 for 1. Now, if you can somehow give this a Socketed Minor effect, it gets a small bonus. That's very combo and conditiony just to make this 1/1 a 2/2. Even a 2/2 with a Sockable Major and Minor for 3 would be good, but it's never going to look like that because you need multiple cards to make this actually work. Just underwhelming, too conditional, huge setup cost. F. I'm going to give it, I'll give it a D- because somebody is going to make a giant, amazing thing out of all their, because when their combo finally gets off and they can make this thing just unstoppable. But I'll give it a D-. It'll be fun to try, but not very realistic. If you're worried about your win rate, don't play this card. Resource Optimization Infusing Bot. When this enters play, gain a threshold of your choice. Sacrifice this, gain a resource. This is perfect fixing. It only costs 1. It could give you a resource later on. It helps your thresholds turn 1 even. I mean, that's great. You want to see this in your opening hand if you're splashing anything. Even if you're not, it's good. It definitely optimizes your resources. This is a solid C+. Moving on. Rootforged Regalia, basic 2, tap. Target troop you control gets +2/+2 this turn. This card's good. The fact that it's 2 makes it better. It's going to be good in aggressive decks. Going to be good in mid-rangey decks. Maybe not controlled, because you're probably going to have finishers that can stand on their own. But it can fit in a lot of decks. It's going to help worse decks become better. It's a cheap artifact. Cheap artifacts are good. I actually like this card. I'm going to give it a C+. a Scrapyard Bruiser. This is kind of part of a cycle of recursion robots that kind of become other cards and bring each other back and become annoying to your opponent. But it's a 2/2 for 3. That dies. That sucks. But when it dies, it becomes this, which is a 1/1 for 1. So it's kind of like a 3/3 for 3 on installment plans. This becomes that, and this becomes that. They kind of never go away and they live forever. I mean, not forever, but well, kind of. You see this next card. Okay, so this becomes that, and then Magnetron. When this enters play, put a Scrapyard Dynamo from your graveyard into your hand. When this dies, create a Scrapyard Dynamo. Okay, when this comes into play, it gets back these, and these came from when this died. When this dies, it becomes this, and then when you play this, you get more of these. And then when this dies, create a Scrapyard Bruiser and put it to play. It becomes one of these, and then when this dies, it becomes one of those. And then if you get another one of these, you can get more one of these. You kind of see where I'm going with this. A whole lot of these guys clogging up the board and being annoying to your opponent. So obviously, if you have a Magnetron, you're gonna want Bruisers, and you have Bruisers, you're gonna want Magnetron. And this is kind of just like an annoying part of your curve that's just gonna. It's not really a build around because it's not that powerful of an effect, but it's solid in draft. It's gonna stall games out and annoy your opponent. And so if you're mid-rangey control, these guys are pretty sweet. Not the greatest aggro cards, just because their base power and toughness isn't really that aggressively costed. But anyway, Scroll of Akazua. This card is great. Whenever anything dies, any troop dies or goes into a graveyard, you get a counter. When you get 6 counters, you get one of these. Blasphemous Horror, which is a 6/6 for 6. That's just awesome. Blasphemous Horror, 6/6 for 6. Okay, that's sweet. Awesome. Thank you so much. It's gonna happen a lot because it's not just your troops; it's their troops. And sweet, right? I mean, come on, that's just great. And cast it on 2. It just starts taking away counters early. Imagine a control deck where you could play a great 3-drop, 4-drop, stall up 4. This thing gets bigger. You kill their stuff. You get a 6/6 with Crush. Great card. I give it a B. It's kind of a slow setup cost, but it's worth it in my opinion. Sepulchral Bonewalker. This has +1/+1 for each different threshold you have. This is like Sunburst and Magic. It's gonna be a 2/2 for 3 more often. If you get your splash card, it's gonna be a 3/3 for 2 every once in a while. Not that great. Playing more than 4. If you're playing 4 or 5 shards, it's going to be pretty awesome, but that's going to happen such a small percentage of time. It's not worth it. There's not really any artifact synergies that I've seen. This card isn't that great. I give it a D. D. Just give it a D. Okay. Culture Crypt Dust, awesome. If you're Necrotic Allegiance, obviously, get any threshold you don't have is powerful. Sometimes you're going to want one that you do have, obviously, if you have double threshold, but in the kind of decks that want this card, your chances are you're just playing 4 or 5 shards and you're not worried about double threshold. You don't play double threshold in those kind of decks normally. And yeah, so it's cool. It's really great if you're in Necrotic Allegiance slash 5 shard kind of deck. If not, it's pretty bad. You don't want it. It might be worth some money because it's constructed. We'll see. But yeah, so this is, I'll probably give it an A or D, depending on whether or not your deck wants it. Star Sphere, this card is pretty underwhelming. Look at a random card in your deck, put it up to one of those cards on the top of your deck. So you get a random card, and if you like it, you get to be out next. That's fine. The fact that it's random and it doesn't give you a threshold makes it kind of a liability land. Moving on. Sin, Earthdrake Nomad. Card's amazing. 5/6 for 7. Flying is good enough on its own to win you the game. The fact that when CERN Earthdrake Nomad attacks, void the top card of your deck. You can void the top card of your deck, copy it, and play it for free is absolutely broken. Card's amazing. If that can't win you, if it can't win you the game on its own, the thing that you get to play for free will. Totally insane, amazing, first pickable, probably worth 200, 300 platinum. It's a little too expensive for constructed, but that's not the focus of this review. Awesome card, yay. Unity generator. Really bad fixing, really slow fixing. Give it a D. Again, Zin X Silk, get a charge, or get a Spiderling, or a Ruby, or a Sapphire. If you're Venom Allegiance, awesome if you're in Venom. If not, poo poo. A little better than the other ones if you're not in Venom because you get a Spider Egg, but whatever. It's decent. I give it a. So I'll give it a C- or an A, depending on whether or not you want it. All right, that concludes artifacts. Thanks a lot.